is the mark of the beast? I know that's a popular question, and I'm going to
Yeah.
read here from Revelation 13. We get, "Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs, it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, deceive the inhabitants of the earth, order them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." So, Dr. Carey, what is going on? What is this mark of the beast? What are we talking about? Could you help us maybe understand it a little bit?
I can try. This really isn't a short answer question, Will, because the passage you just read has a lot going on.
Yeah, that's for
So,
sure. That is for
right.
sure.
The beast is the primary antagonist of the lamb in Revelation. That the lamb is the primary symbol for Jesus. And the beast is arrogant, idolatrous, violent, and it exercises economic exploitation. The passage talks about no one can buy or sell. Revelation deals in symbols and the relationships among symbols, like the lamb and the beast have a lot in common, but different. They're not opposites, but they are opposed, right, in the way that Revelation sets it up. So in the passage you read, there's a second beast, right? You meet the first beast at the beginning of chapter 13, but then the second beast who is promoting worship and conformity to the ways of the beast.
Mm.
And no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark. Well, the Lamb's followers have marks too, right? So this is a way of designating loyalty or at least adherence to a certain way. You're either a follower of the Lamb or you're in the world of the beast. We haven't even gotten to the last verse of the chapter that I thought you were about to read. This calls for wisdom, right? To understand or calculate the number of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah, we can put on the screen. It's 13:18. We get, "This
Yeah.
calls for wisdom," like you said. "Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is written, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666."
And that line, "it's the number of a man," has driven interpreters nuts through the centuries, right? How do you pin this number on a human being who does all the things the beast does? And everything's been tried. The number is 666. And there are two primary schools of interpreting that number. One is that Revelation is big on the number 7 as signifying holy things and things that are complete. So the number 6 could be just not 7, right? Something inferior, partial, distorted. But the passage says, but it's the number of a person, right? That's verse 18. And so among scholars, the most popular interpretation is the number is being assigned to the Roman Emperor Nero. If this requires some numerology, calculating in Greek and Hebrew letters, Neron Caesar or Nero Caesar would add up to 666. But in Hebrew, Revelation's written in Greek. You'll notice in a modern translation, there's a footnote that says some manuscripts say 616. And, I didn't say Nero, I said Neron with an N. That N happens to count for 50, and in
Hmm.
Hebrew can be dropped. And so that name would explain why we have these two traditions of people copying Revelation.
Hmm.
But it could very well be that what Revelation is saying, almost surely it's written after the time of Nero. We don't know that for a fact, but we have reasons for thinking it. But Nero is the first of the Roman emperors, as understood, to have persecuted the followers of Jesus in the wake of the Great Fire in Rome. And it was local, but at least our historical traditions say that. There seems to be a tradition of reflecting upon Nero among early Christians as being particularly wicked. And so it's not that Revelation is saying the beast is the Emperor Nero, but Nero represents all of these things, the potential for violence, persecution, corruption, big with Nero, or at least as he's remembered. That would be my guess, but I wouldn't claim to be sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings up the question then is, are we talking about the future or are we reflecting on what's currently happening? Or, is it somehow both? Like you said, Nero, of course, I would say, relatively famous for persecuting Christians. I think he blames Christians for starting the big
Mhm.
fire. And we have extra biblical, obviously, reasons to think Nero was a relatively, morally inept person. I don't think anyone is historically praising Nero as a holy person. So do you read it more as presumably John writing Revelation, kind of observing what's happening and reflecting on, look at this evil in the world, more so than he's like projecting the future, or do you think he's doing both of those things at the same time?
I think both in a certain way. So at the beginning and end of Revelation, and multiple times, John tells his readers he's addressing things that are about to happen soon.
Hmm.
So, in that way, he signals that he's writing about events in his own era. He also addresses Revelation to 7 assemblies or churches in the Roman province of Asia, which would be like western, southwestern Turkey today. So presumably the message is relevant to them and whatever they're experiencing at that moment. So in that sense, Revelation is written about its own time and place and the empire that dominates that time and place. But Revelation also has a future outlook because it's saying, and God is going to overcome not just the beast, but also the devil, right? And all forms of wickedness are going to be purged from the world. A new Jerusalem's coming down from heaven. All of that is future oriented. What it's not is predictive in the sense of a timeline. Revelation doesn't do that. But, those Christians who deny that there's a future dimension of Revelation are leaving a chunk of the book out. Those who think it's predicting future headlines are completely ignoring what most of the book is doing.